I save the world. I save the world.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the talk portion of the Sunday gathering, and thank you for taking your time out of your summer, and as Blake mentioned, the hot summer. In fact, even today here in San Francisco, I had to take out my fan out of the closet and turn it on because it's a bit warmer here today. So if you see me go for my towel and dry off because I'm sweating, you'll know why. It's one of those days here, which is great because we don't get a lot of hot days. So anyway, my talk for today is titled Decisions, Decisions, Decisions. Because as Reverend Tony read from A Course in Miracles, we know that we're always making decisions. And, decisions are continuous, as it says in today's reading. We all made choices even today. We decided what we were going to maybe eat for breakfast. If we drink coffee, were we going to put milk in our coffee, cream, sugar? We made a decision to come here and come on Zoom and take an hour and a half out of our day to, hopefully receive the healing message of Course in Miracles through the various activities we do here. So we're making these decisions every day. And what we know from A Course in Miracles is that they do encourage us to, be kind of thoughtful about the significant decisions that we make. The Course in Miracles doesn't say we have routines that we do about our day. It doesn't say you have to ask the Holy Spirit necessarily should I take a shower today or not? It doesn't say necessarily, should I, put sugar on my cereal or not? Some of those things are just routines like that we do. We have routines for work, we have routines at home, and so on and so forth. But, we are confronted with other kinds of decisions, such as what we want to do with our day and who we want to see and how we respond to people in relationships. And so the Course in Miracles does give us a kind of outline about how we want to, or how we can make decisions about our daily lives. And that, of course, builds over time and creates, our experience here. And what's very, very interesting to me about what the Course says is it's the first two rules that it gives are kind of pretty instructive, very clear. So the first thing it asks us to do is just today to not make any decisions by ourself. And of course, by ourself is talking about our ego self, our individual self. So we know from our study in the Course that a lot of times the ego counsels us first. The ego's voice speaks loudest. So it is asking us to consciously kind of surrender our day to our higher mind, our mind of love and light and peace, and try to access that voice, which, sometimes takes practice. And then the other thing, which I think is even more interesting, is in the reading that Reverend Tony did, it says this: throughout the day, at any time you think of it and have a quiet moment for reflection, tell yourself again the kind of day you want, the feelings you would have, the things you want to happen, and the things you would experience. And say, if I would make no decision by myself, this is the day that will be given me. So I think that's really interesting because, for one, I know there are probably, for example, high enlightened masters, that they have Jesus in his lifetime and others. They knew kind of the script ahead of time. They knew what events were going to come down in some manner. They were informed by the Holy Spirit. And I humbly can say that I don't necessarily I haven't had that gift of being able to see, ahead in the future or, necessarily have that gift. But what I do get from this particular second part of decision making is that I can, at least at this point, kind of impact, what kind of day I'm going to have. And, I can, it says, well, what kind, so it's kind of getting us at least starting to train our mind to think about, well, how would I like to feel today? Like, and that decisions, things are going to happen. And how would I experience those things that are going to happen? So we may have some structure to our day as the day goes on. Maybe it's work, or maybe we're going to see friends, and maybe it's so on and so forth. And we may have mixed feelings or mixed thoughts about, conflicting thoughts about those kinds of experiences, or maybe we have a relationship challenge, so on and so forth. So it gives us an opportunity at least to preface that in a way and ask for Holy Spirit. And so, I recently, July 26th of this summer, I recently had a day in which there was like all these kind of very interesting options and possibilities were presented to me in my life. And as I guess we all know, we have our own experiences, and the Course says there's no difficulty in, or there's no difference really in miracles, whether we perceive the decisions or experiences of our lives to be significant or not. There's really no difficulty in or difference in those miracles. They're all kind of the same. But sometimes decisions that we make do have more significant implications in our practical life. And so, we have to, we kind of understand this. And so some of these recent experiences have gotten me to think about, this decision making, how we make decisions with the Holy Spirit. So, as I mentioned earlier, some decisions we have in life are kind of more simple. They're easier decisions to make, and some appear to have more complications for us. So, I'm just going to kind of share in a very honest way a little bit about what happened to me on July 26th. I had a friend coming into town, and this was a friend who was used to live in San Francisco. And who I had, I had dated in the past, and although we had different ideas about the long-term nature of relationships, so we didn't stay together, but I still loved him, and had a lot of respect for who he was and the kind of person he was, and he had a lot of really wonderful qualities. So anyway, we decided to get together, and we were going to go have lunch before we saw Elvis, the most recent movie starring Tom Hanks, and which was actually a wonderful movie. And we were having lunch, and so he started talking to me a little bit about why he was in San Francisco. And the first thing he told me about was that he was here because he's a business person, and he wanted to start a business. And I had almost invested in one of his previous businesses before, but then I didn't. And I regretted that. I thought, I always thought to myself, if, my friend wants to do this business, again, I'm going to do it. So I told him right away, I said, his idea for a business is he wants to start a boba or bubble tea business here in San Francisco, which is a pretty challenging market. And I instantly said, I will invest with you. I'm not like a venture capitalist, but, I have some capital. I said, I believe in you, and I'll invest in you, and that is true. It totally came from my heart and whatnot. And so, we started talking a little bit about that, and we got excited, about the whole idea. And my contribution in terms of actually doing the business would be limited because I'm a teacher, so my full-time job takes a lot of work. But I was just kind of backing the idea. And then we had time. We were finished at lunch, and we had time, and so we walked around. If you're in San Francisco, we walked around the Yerba Buena Garden, where it's a really beautiful area outside of the Metreon, and it even has this wonderful civil rights memorial to the civil rights movement, and many quotations from Martin Luther King. So it's a nice, beautiful park in a city, in a park within the urban landscape. So we were walking around there, and then my friend presented me kind of with a situation in his life, and his situation was, essentially that his immigration status was in jeopardy, meaning his visa was kind of running out within a few months, and that he was going to have to, kind of leave the country, and so on and so forth. And so, I don't remember the exact specifics, but then I said to him, well, here I was, I'm a single man. I said, well, I'd be willing to help you with that, that situation. And because I was excited about what we had been talking about. And so that would entail us getting married. So I made this decision on the spot to agree to that. And so for the next week for the next few days, we were, making, kind of figuring out all the implications for this. And there were a lot of implications in terms of, home and looking for a place and so on and so forth, and all of this. And, and to be honest, some people might have qualms about this because of the legal, kind of the legal requirements and what the government says and immigration and all that. And, my prevailing thought was, was kind of like, well, we're under no laws but God's. And sometimes, I personally feel that the immigration laws in our country are unfair and unjust. And in particular to this situation with my friend, who I felt an eminently decent fellow, and also somebody who employs people here in the country through his efforts, I felt that the government's laws were unjust and unfair. So I was at that moment kind of willing to support him in his quest to remain here legally in the United States. So we were, like I said, we were going about the business, and it was all exciting about looking for the business and then considering the other implications for it. And then, as the week progressed, I started to have doubts about my decision about, getting married and changing, it would have meant, like changing significant parts, like especially where I live. That would be a big, for most of the time, I would have to change that. And going through this legal process, the government makes you go through a pretty rigorous process to prove that your marriage is valid, and so on and so forth. So, I started to think about all these implications, and also my own feelings about where I was in terms of a person getting married and what I thought about marriage and so on and so forth. And so over time, I really thought about that. And I also had another thought occur to me, is that there are a lot of times when, there are several times recently, meaning like this past year, where I've been in social situations and people will say to me, they'll say to me like, Peter, you're a handsome guy, you're a really great guy. Why aren't you in a relationship? And so, like those things I started thinking about those things for myself. And so, it got me thinking about, special relationships and holy relationships and all the rest, and a little bit more deeply. And what I realized is that, at this point in my life, the most important relationship that I have is with God. And for, use whatever word you want there that's comfortable. For me, it's Holy Spirit. Sometimes it's in the form of, the voice, kind of like my morning meditation and my prayer. The best part of my day is in the morning, and the day when I try to get up early and put on music and read from the Course and other inspirational texts. And I try to spend with God, like that's what Holy Spirit, God, whatever word you want to use, love. And that's the best part of my day. And I think what I realize is for myself at this point in time is like, I'm just not absolutely clear whether, I guess I am clear that I don't, oftentimes, people that I meet or date have the worldly view of relationships and what they mean, and kind of maybe what's more along the lines of the special relationship. So there's like trade-offs, and you have to buy into certain myths, I guess, like myths of the ego about what relationship or what kind of those primary relationships might mean. And for me, when I'm pushed on those kinds of ideas, like such as this, this idea of getting married to another person, I discovered that I'm just not really there. Like, in terms of my commitment to that kind of relationship. And so, when I told my friend that it was about 5 days later, when I told my friend that, I can't do this right now, and it was heartbreaking for him for lots of reasons, and that wasn't pleasant either to have to, kind of do that. But, what I realized is that, for me, in order to feel comfortable in that, and this is what I said to him, it's like, I would definitely need a longer period of time to get to know them, even though, I know I love and care for this person, and for them to get to know me, and all my, complexities. I know, in some ways we're love and that's all we are and that's our experience, but we're also still working through our own egos, and my ego has some pretty significant challenges. I've shared here before, that, I do have some flaws, obviously, and some challenges. And one of my significant challenges is trust, which is, I know, one of the characteristics of the teachers of God. And I'm going through that process with the Holy Spirit, and on my own, and I realized that, there was a significant event, and this, I'm going to share this with you all, and I'm not saying it to really, not to blame anyone. Reverend Rudy is often reminding us in our classes, we're responsible for the world we see and everything we experience. So, what I'm about to say, I'm not going to blame people, but there was a significant wounded experience I had as a child, where for the first 9 years of my life, I was led to believe that my stepfather was my father, and then in a kind of in a dramatic fashion, something had happened significant in my family. I was kind of told abruptly that he wasn't. And then the story was told to me about what happened, and it was one of those stories, and that happens in families sometimes, where my original parents divorced very early on, and they decided the best way to deal with it was just pretend that my biological father didn't exist, and just push him out of the picture, kind of, And so what happened was, I realized that at that moment I was devastated as a child, a 9-year-old, and I made a vow that I would never get close to anyone again. I would never let anyone get close to me, And what I recently realized, and this was, like, we all do our work and in Course in Miracles, and so we have different vehicles to get to our work. So in my journaling, which I sometimes do with the Holy Spirit, I realized that I was still under the control of this wound, that I'm still under the control of it. And, the Holy Spirit says we have to bring all these things to, we have to bring them to Jesus. We have to bring them to the Holy Spirit to be healed. But, our bigger wounds, at least as we perceive them, may take a long time. They may take time. And so what I realized, I was kind of in denial about how this wound was impacting me in all my relationships and all my commitments, commitments to the Course of Miracles, the commitments to, people in my life. And it was really having this summer, I'm off for the summer, that I was really able to look more deeply inside myself and see that I still had this controlling, this experience was still very much under the ego, like I was still really wary of people and trust and having trust issues. And so the guidance I got from the Holy Spirit was, I needed to start talking about it more to, in safe spaces, for me, like, I'm not going out in the street and talking about it, but, this is a Course in Miracles. We're a healing community. We're trying to awaken from the dream. And I have to heal from some of these apparent experiences that I've had. And so that's what, that has been the revealing lesson for me is that, I'm still on this trust journey, and trust is really important for human relations and for our relationship with God. The Course in Miracles talks about there's like 6 stages in the development of trust. And, I think the first one is undoing, and third one is relinquishment, and then there's a period of settling down, and then we go even through another period. And I don't know exactly where I am in that process. I actually feel like sometimes with just the Holy Spirit, I'm in a much better place or much further along than I am in with some people. But what I will say is that, I feel like we sometimes maybe go into different levels and stages of that trust. Oops, sorry. We have a little, hold on a second. Sorry. So we have different, we're at different places in that trust continuum, if you will. And so when I told my friend, about this, now I didn't tell him about my experience with my parents, but when I talked to him about this, I did come back to peace, and I did come back to my center, because I knew this was the right thing. And so, I don't know how it's all going to work out, but, even further down in like, if you look at that further, if you go back and do the reading on the rules of decision, what the Course in Miracles says is that, even if we make a mistake, even if, it's a, I guess, like people that have great authority can make great mistakes, right? Or even if it's in the world or if it's in our personal lives, even if we make a huge mistake and hurt people, or not necessarily intentionally, but hurt them, just turn it over to the Holy Spirit. And that's been a real lesson for me. And I've been seeing it more and more in my lives, where you just turn over the Holy Spirit and ask for a miracle in the situation. And this has kind of been the blessing for me in the summer, is that with decisions, it's like, my mind, when I'm having these different choices with other people, even with, with my own biological father, I still have lots of healing to do. But we talk, and I turn the relationship over. And like even yesterday, he called me for the first time. Vervin Vincent knows this. He called me for the first time. Almost, he's never calls me unless it's like to give bad news. But yesterday he just called me. It's the first time ever, and that's what I've been working on. Is just, my mind oftentimes will, as the Course in Miracles says, in relationships, will counsel all these catastrophic outcomes and all these compulsive things I have to do to stop these catastrophic outcomes in my relationships. And the real truth is that if I do place my future in the hands of God and turn it over and just ask for miracles when I'm thinking about relationships or having any situations, then I return to peace and things just work out. So for today, I just want to say that the Course does give us great guidance about decisions in our own lives, and we're all on a healing path. And we just have to embrace maybe sometimes that we don't know what's going to happen, but if we trust, and even if we acknowledge that our trust isn't 100%, Holy Spirit will take care of it, and we're all going to be fine. And that's my talk for today. Thank you.
Woke up my eyes to see, woke up my head up my heart to be free. Woke up our world, you and me. I've opened up my heart, I'm at the start. I save the world, I save the world, I save the world, I save